The courtroom did not feel like a place of justice that morning. It felt like a battlefield. Papers shuffled softly across wooden desks. Benches creaked under the weight of restless bodies. Low whispers floated through the room like uneasy ghosts. Every sound felt louder than it should have been. Then, silence. The kind of silence that presses against your chest. At the center of it all sat Ethan Cole. He sat upright on the wooden bench, his back straight, his shoulders stiff, his hands locked tightly together. Not because he was calm, not because he was confident, but because he was holding himself together for 8 months. 8 months of raising 2 boys alone had etched deep lines beneath his eyes. Lines no amount of sleep could erase. His face carried the quiet exhaustion of a man who had learned to function without rest. His jaw was tight. His breathing was measured. Across the room sat Marissa, his wife, or the woman who still carried that title on paper. She looked composed, controlled, carefully dressed in a modest blouse and skirt, her hair neatly arranged, her posture straight. To anyone watching from the outside, she looked like the fragile one, the wounded one, the kind of woman strangers would instantly sympathize with. Ethan used to. Once long ago, he had looked at her and seen someone who needed saving. The judge cleared his throat, the sharp sound cutting through the tension. "Mr. Cole," he said evenly, "you may begin." Ethan stood slowly. The room watched. "I didn't come here to punish her," Ethan said, his voice steady but low. "I didn't come here to humiliate her." He paused. "I came here because the truth has been buried for too long." Marissa scoffed loudly, breaking the stillness. "You mean your truth," she said, shaking her head. Ethan didn't look at her. "When I met Marissa," he continued, "she was already pregnant." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Some people shifted in their seats. Others leaned forward. "Everyone told me to walk away," Ethan said. "Friends, family, even strangers." He swallowed. "They said it wasn't my responsibility." He paused again. "But I didn't walk away. I married her anyway," he said, knowing the child she carried wasn't mine. A quiet gasp echoed across the room. "I chose to be a father before I ever became a husband," Ethan continued. "I signed school forms. I paid hospital bills. I stayed up all night when that boy was sick." He turned slightly toward the judge. "Biology didn't matter to me." The judge leaned forward now, his eyes sharp with attention. "But love," Ethan said quietly, his voice tightening, "doesn't stop betrayal." Marissa stood suddenly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You abandoned us," she cried. "You left me alone again and again." Her voice shook with anger and desperation. "You left me alone with children that weren't even yours." The words hit like a slap. The courtroom buzzed again, but Ethan didn't react. He finally looked at her. "Yes," he said calmly. "I traveled for work. I left to provide," he continued. "I left so there would be food on the table, so there would be a roof over our heads." He paused, his voice catching. "But I always came back. Always. Until—" his throat tightened. "Until the night I realized," he said slowly, "that I didn't recognize what I was coming back to." The judge raised his hand firmly. "Order," he said. The room fell quiet once more. "Mr. Cole," the judge asked carefully, "are you accusing your wife of infidelity?" Ethan lifted his eyes. "Yes," he said. The word hung in the air. A beat passed. "With 7 of my co-workers." The courtroom erupted. Gasps. Shouts. Disbelief. Marissa's voice cut through the chaos. "That's a lie," she screamed. "You're making this up." Ethan didn't raise his voice. 7 men who worked beside me every day," he said. 7 men who smiled at me, who shook my hand, who know my home. The judge slammed the gavel. "Order," he shouted. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. Ethan took a breath. Because the next part, the part he hadn't said yet, was the moment everything truly broke. The judge leaned back slowly. "Mr. Cole," he said, "this court will require evidence." Ethan nodded once, and for the first time that morning, Marissa's face changed, because she knew exactly what was coming next, and so did everyone else. The first warning did not arrive with shouting. It arrived quietly, almost gently. Ethan was not searching for secrets that afternoon. He was doing what he always did when he was home, trying to be present. The boys were at the kitchen table, bent over crayons and half-finished homework, arguing softly about who had stolen whose pencil. Ethan smiled faintly as he opened the kitchen drawer. He was looking for scissors. Instead, his fingers touched paper, folded, carefully stacked. He frowned and pulled them out. Letters. Handwritten letters. Not grocery lists. Not reminders. Letters meant to be kept. Ethan unfolded the first one, then the second, then the third. His chest tightened with every word. They were personal, intimate, familiar in a way that made his stomach turn. At the bottom of each letter was the same name. Victor Hale. Ethan recognized it immediately. Victor was nearly 50 years old, calm, polite. Someone from work gatherings. Someone who always greeted him with a nod and a smile. Someone Ethan had once described as harmless. The letters did not sound harmless. They spoke of gratitude that felt too deep, of comfort that crossed invisible lines, of moments shared quietly, of understanding that should not exist between a married woman and another man. Ethan closed his eyes. He wanted there to be an explanation. When he confronted Marissa that night, she didn't panic. She sighed, as if he was the problem. "He helped me once," she said casually. "We were struggling. I needed money. He gave me $100. Ethan held up the letters. "This isn't about money," he said. Marissa crossed her arms. "You're imagining things. You always do, but letters don't imagine feelings. They reveal them. You're never here." Marissa snapped when he pushed back. "You leave me alone for days, sometimes weeks. What do you expect me to do?" The words cut deeper than she realized. Because Ethan knew part of it was true. Work took him away. Emergency shifts. Long trips. Responsibilities that paid bills but cost time. But every time, he came back. Every time, he believed home was still safe. Until the night that destroyed that belief forever. It was raining when Ethan returned early from work. Hard rain. The boys were asleep in the back seat, their small chests rising and falling peacefully. Ethan carried them carefully, one by one, up the steps to the house. He knocked once, no answer. He knocked again. Still nothing. Minutes passed. 5, 10. His stomach tightened. After 15 minutes, the door finally opened. Marissa stood there, breathless, her hair slightly disheveled, her eyes wide, startled, searching his face for something. Ethan's gaze drifted past her, and that's when he saw it. On the wall behind her, a shadow. Tall male. Still waiting. Ethan's heart dropped. "Who's inside?" he asked quietly. "No one." Marissa replied too fast. Too sharp. Too practiced. Ethan didn't argue. He didn't shout. He didn't push past her. He walked away slowly, his mind racing, his chest burning. The truth came days later. Dawn. Did he forget to like and comment? The truth was worse than he imagined. The man had not been a stranger. Not a random mistake. Not a passing moment of weakness. The man had been one of Ethan's co-workers. Someone he saw every day. Someone who knew his schedule, his absences, his trust. That was the moment Ethan understood something painful. This wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern. That night, he packed quietly. No yelling, no threats. He lifted the boys from their beds and carried them out while the house slept. 8 months followed. 8 months of being both mother and father. 8 months of school runs and midnight fevers. 8 months without a single call asking how the boys were. And then, she asked for money, $800 a month. In the courtroom, Marissa said, "He abandoned us." Ethan looked at her. "No," he said softly. "I finally saw the truth." But what Ethan still hadn't told the court, what he hadn't said out loud yet, was that Victor Hale wasn't the only name in those letters. There were others. More names. More secrets. And when those names were finally spoken, everything would collapse. The courtroom no longer felt controlled. It felt volatile, like a room holding its breath for a spark. Ethan stood quietly beside his attorney, his expression unreadable. Across from him, Marissa sat rigid, her hands clenched in her lap, her eyes darting between the judge and the people watching from the benches behind her. The judge adjusted his glasses. "We will now hear further testimony," he said. "Counsel may proceed." Marissa's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor," he began, "this case is being driven by bitterness. My client was repeatedly abandoned. Mr. Cole would disappear for days, sometimes weeks, leaving her alone with 2 children. Marissa nodded vigorously, tears forming. I begged him to stay, she said when called to speak. I begged him to be present. I was drowning. Her voice cracked. I was alone. The courtroom murmured in sympathy. Ethan's attorney rose slowly. May I ask a question? He said calmly. The judge nodded. Mrs. Cole, the attorney said, during the 8 months Mr. Cole had custody, how many times did you visit your children? Marissa hesitated. I needed time. That was not the question, the attorney said gently. How many times? Silence. None, she whispered. A ripple moved through the room. And how much financial support did you provide during those 8 months? Marissa's shoulders sagged. None. The judge made a note. Ethan remained still. Then came the witnesses. A teacher testified that Ethan never missed a meeting. A doctor confirmed Ethan was listed as the primary caregiver. A neighbor described seeing Ethan walk the boys to school every morning, rain or shine. Each testimony tightened the air. Then Ethan's attorney placed a thick folder on the evidence table. Your Honor, he said, we submit these letters. The judge gestured for them to be handed forward. Printed pages were spread across the table. Handwriting visible. Dates highlighted. Names underlined. The courtroom leaned in. Marissa's breathing quickened. The judge looked up. These letters reference multiple individuals, he said slowly. He paused. Mr. Cole, the judge asked, how many names appear here? Ethan swallowed. 7, he said. Marissa shot to her feet. This is harassment, she shouted. Those are private. The judge slammed the gavel. Sit down, he ordered. Ethan's attorney spoke clearly. One of those names is Victor Hale, he said, a co-worker of Mr. Cole, a man nearly 50 years old. Marissa shook her head violently. The attorney continued. Another name belongs to a man who shared Mr. Cole's shift. Gasps filled the room. And another, he said, was present in the Cole home while Mr. Cole stood outside knocking. Marissa collapsed back in her chair. Her composure shattered. Her lawyer whispered urgently, but it was too late. The judge removed his glasses. Mrs. Cole, he said firmly, is there any explanation you wish to provide? Marissa opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Tears streamed down her face as the weight of the room pressed in. Ethan finally spoke. I didn't want this, he said quietly. I wanted a family. The judge closed the folder with a final snap. This court has heard enough, he said. The gavel lifted. And everyone knew. The verdict was moments away. The courtroom stood still. No whispers. No shifting benches. No restless feet. Only breath. The judge returned after what felt like an eternity, the heavy wooden door closing behind him with a quiet finality. Every eye followed his steps as he took his seat, the weight of the case resting visibly on his shoulders. Ethan did not move. He had learned, over the last 8 months, how to wait, how to endure. Marissa sat rigid, her mascara streaked, her hands trembling despite her effort to appear composed. The confidence she once carried into the courtroom had evaporated, leaving behind something raw and exposed. The judge cleared his throat. This case, he began, is not about revenge. His eyes scanned the room. It is about responsibility. He looked directly at Marissa. You claim abandonment, he said evenly. Yet for 8 months, you made no attempt to visit your children. Marissa lowered her head. You claim neglect, he continued. Yet the evidence shows Mr. Cole provided food, shelter, education, medical care, and emotional stability. The judge paused. And most importantly, he said, lifting the folder slightly, you claim innocence. The silence became unbearable. These letters, the judge said, tell a different story. Marissa's breath hitched. Multiple inappropriate relationships. Multiple individuals connected directly to the husband's workplace. One individual present in the home during Mr. Cole's absence. He closed the folder. This court finds the testimony of Mr. Cole credible. Ethan's chest tightened. The court further finds that Mr. Cole assumed responsibility for a child that was not biologically his, out of commitment, not obligation. A murmur swept through the courtroom. That choice speaks to character. Marissa began to sob openly now. The judge's voice softened but did not bend. Child support, he said firmly, is denied. Marissa looked up in shock. Custody, the judge continued, remains with Mr. Cole. Ethan closed his eyes. Just for a second. This court acknowledges, the judge concluded, that fatherhood is proven not by blood, but by presence. The gavel struck. Once. Final. Ethan exhaled for the first time in months. Outside the courtroom, the hallway buzzed with sound again. Lawyers spoke in hushed tones. Footsteps echoed. Doors opened and closed. Ethan knelt in front of the boys, who waited quietly on a bench. "Is it over?" the older one asked. Ethan nodded. "Yes," he said softly. "We're going home." He held the boys' hands. There was no celebration, no cheering, just three figures walking forward. Behind them, Marissa watched. No anger left, only regret. That evening, Ethan tucked the boys into bed in a home that finally felt safe. He sat between their rooms long after the lights went out, listening to the steady rhythm of their breathing. He thought of the promise he had made years ago, to stay. And this time, he would. Because sometimes the greatest truth isn't exposed in letters or courtrooms. Sometimes it's proven by the one who never walked away. Like, comment, and subscribe for more thrilling stories.